You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hi, welcome to Mushie Moment for today. I don't know what the date's going to be. 5th, September 5th, Tuesday, September 5th. Because we are here. Listen, I'm tomorrow is my birthday, so my head's kind of spacey. I apologize. I forgot what date it was. We are here live on paceradio.net, cbgtv.com. We are coming to you through Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, the internet, everywhere. If they're streaming, we're on it. You can find us, I'm sure. Welcome to the Mushie Moment. We are here today. I am here today as your host again, Reverend Cindy. And my guest again today is my usual co-host, Mr. Steve Mather. Last week we had Steve on and we talked to Steve. We talked to Steve about what it was like, as his girls were going through their journey. To be the father of twin girls who ended up in addiction, and then, going through the fight to find sobriety, and they're still going through that fight to find sobriety, and what it was like for him watching them, what he did, what he went through, and where he, ultimately was able to help them and be there for them, in a place of acceptance and unconditional love with his daughters. It's a pretty powerful story, and it's one that always leaves me quite emotional. We are bringing Steve back today. We are going to be talking to Steve about what the few days after the interview were like for him, what he went through, and we're going to be continuing on to hear more about Steve's personal story and his successes through psychedelic medicine. So without further ado, let's bring on Steve and have another beautiful chat. Welcome again, Steve.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and how are you?
I'm doing good. But I have to say that the day after we did the last podcast, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Did I go through some emotional and mental refiling, really?
Yeah.
Having been the host with you and interviewed my daughters and then interviewed Marnie and I was able, while we were doing it, I was able to watch some of the tension and the negative energy released from them as we were doing this stuff. And being a person watching, it's like, hey, that's awesome. Look, and then I talked to them afterwards and they thanked me because you're getting stuff off of your chest. You're getting weight off. But having done it, I realized that while I was doing it, there was a lot going on in my head while we were doing it. Because I'm aware that, this is going to be recorded out there. People can watch it later. You want to be accurate in what you're going through. And when I watched the podcast afterwards, I was noticing me going into my head and noticing I'm going deep on the details in my head. And I'm giving out a portion of it, in the interview. But I'm going real deep through it, because I want to make sure it's truthful and accurate and it's, it's there. It's my truth, not just a blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Going through it that deeply is while I'm doing it, I'm not processing what's going on while I'm doing it. I'm processing the data and sharing the data. And afterwards, the The emotional and mental purge took a couple of days to completely happen. There was so much I went through that I actually, because I've told the story a couple of times, and I thought I'd gotten through all of it actually. And I realized as I was going through and being, more fine-tooth combing through stuff, it was like, oh, there's still a lot there that's, hanging on to that heart and holding on that I got to release. But I think that having a platform like this for people to tell their stories when they've been through trauma and that, I think it's a beautiful place to have available for people. It's very healing. After telling this story, I spent 2 days with a lot of noise in my head. It brought back a lot of noise. The medicines, my journey, the meditation, I've been curbing the noise and finding the quiet. Well, you get used to that place of quiet and you go, oh, I feel better. Yes. Well, there's still some noise in there and you've just got it. You've taken the first couple of layers out. And you're enjoying that quiet so much that you don't actually notice there's a few other layers. When we went through that, I found a few of those layers.
Yeah.
And the noise it created, when I look at it now, I dug up a whole bunch of stuff that my brain didn't really have quite filed properly. It was still processing it. It filed the first layer of stuff. That second layer was waiting to be filed, but I was just enjoying all the filing I'd already done. Well, over the last few days, my brain started to file all of that stuff, the finer details. No, that goes over here in the past folder. Yeah, you had a heavy emotional attachment to that at the time. And, it's, anytime you would try to go, or anytime I would try to go there, it would spark that emotionality. Boom, I'd be overwhelmed with those emotions. It'd be scary. I don't want to go there. But in being interviewed and just letting it flow and let things come out, the body lets it come out in a way that's healthy. You won't sit there punching yourself in the head. The body won't allow you to keep hurting yourself this way. But we can keep hurting ourselves this way. By that purge that we did, it releases all of that self-punching that was going on in the head from all that data that needed to be filed. And it's brought a whole nother level of peace. And I want to just say thank you for allowing me a safe space to do this, allowing my family a safe space to do this. We need to create another one of these called the safe space that we can bring people into and they can tell their story.
Well, we've talked about that before, but we should definitely bring that up again. We are seeing the benefits of just being able to speak the story. Does it change the story? No, but it allows the story to come out and it allows your truths to come out in an unedited way. And that's something that I am honored to offer. And I know that you were honored to offer, and I'm really happy to hear that you're honored to have it offered to you as well. But it's in watching your daughters, especially your daughters, watching the healing that it has kicked off for them. It just brings tears to my eyes, and of happiness and joy. If that small thing can bring some peace to people that have been living in so much noise, as you say, and so much chaos, it's just an honor to be able to provide it. And I'm very honored that your daughters and Marnie and yourself have stepped up and done this to share so much of yourselves with not just me, but everybody. It truly is an honor for you guys to be doing this. I thank you.
Oh, absolute pleasure. It truly is. This is Well, we found each other because we're both walking healing paths and trying to find our healing. And, we seem to have words that help each other. We have the ability to provide a safe space, and watching it grow and help others is, it's all part of the healing. And honestly, I'm honored to show that healing is possible. And I know a lot of people will look at a lot of the things. Like if you watch that last interview with me, wow, I seem like I'm still pretty broken in there. There's a lot of the past that I was still holding on to that was hurting me. And through that, like I had people reach out to me and mention how tired I looked, how hurt I looked. And yes, a lot of it has been tiring, and yes, there's been a lot of pain, but there's also been a lot of love, and there's also been a lot of happiness. There's been a lot of healing. There's been a lot of light come into well, there's always been a lot of light in my life. I've started to see the light that is in my life. And rather than just look at the darkness, the trauma tends to make you look for the darkness all the time. How do I keep myself safe? Where's the darkness? Gotta make sure, I can get the fuck out of here if any of that comes towards me, so it's an interesting pathway. I found that I had no idea that doing that interview was going to emotionally and mentally shit kick me the way it did. Because I was having a rough time for a couple of days. Boy, there was a lot of data flying through there, and me trying to place it and having little emotional moments. But I'm in an observing point. So when I have those moments, even when I was having them in the interview, I was observing myself having that moment. So I allow myself to have the moment. The dissociation part of my brain allows me to also observe me having the moment. And in that, I'm giving myself the love I need to get through those moments as well. And I'm observing who is that's having the moment? What part of me, what part is inside me that's hurting, that those words are affecting, that I need to give love to, because there's somewhere in there that a part of me in that moment that the trauma happened grabbed onto something emotional and went, oh man, that hurts my heart. And I've just held it there. And when I go back to that moment, instead of releasing the moment and finding the love that's in that moment, or any of the light that can be in that moment, I'm still attached to that emotional pain, and I just immediately go there, and it's like, oh. But in reality, that's all stuff from the past, and it's just an emotion. I haven't filed that moment because there's too much emotional attachment, and my brain can't figure out where to file it because there's so much emotion and no logic. But as I release it, and I tell the story to you, as I release that, put it out, it comes in my ears. And I get another view. I get your view, the reflection of your listening to those words. And my eyes and my ears let my brain reprocess that data. And it just goes, oh, that goes over here in the past folder. Yeah, that stuff, it can trigger us a little emotionally. But no, we just need it here. And then when we view it, it's okay to have emotions, just not those hyper emotions that the trauma puts you into all the time. So, it's been an incredible week for me in sorting through the data and coming to this point, because I can tell you the day after, I went, I don't know if I want to do that again. Because it was a lot of mental work.
And I don't want anybody to think that me sitting here with a little giggle or my smile is offensive. It's not. I know more of Steve's story. I know some of the healing parts, and a lot of what he is saying, I know has been taught to him by the medicine. So I am personally, the views that I get in my head, every time you say the word observe, I smile a little bit because I can remember the day you learned that. I was there. I got to observe you learn how to observe. And the fact that tool that you learned via medicine and has come to serve you so well.
Yes.
It really has.
The
And that's what I'm smiling about, is the
Mhm.
healing.
The medicine was massive in pointing that, but I have to say the facilitators,
Oh, yeah.
they went, no, this is where you need to be learning observation.
Yeah.
Observe.
There's a reason why they are there to guide you and help you with, in learning these tools that the medicine is there to give you.
Learning to observe was brutal. Just that was brutal. My brain, I struggled with that for weeks and weeks. Observe without the plan to do anything, to just observe. No, we observe to jump in and fix. We observe to give the words to help. We observe to be Superman and run in and save the day. Observe with no, that
Intent.
was such a foreign concept that literally it took me a long time and a lot of refiling and a lot of data processing to realize that, to observe, one has to shut this off and stop data processing and observe a happening. Yeah, it wasn't bad. Still not easy, but I have to say the amount of healing that it's brought into my life. I really look forward to this next chapter that we're going to go through, because I've learned a lot about my past in the last year, and that I guess was some of it was riding in the back, some of it the medicine has shown me, some of it I've had to ask around through family members, because the ones in the timeline, both my parents and my older brother, that lived with me and grew up with me, that would know more of the story, they've all passed. So I don't actually have them to ask the questions to. I have my younger brothers, but they're not there through a bunch of it.
Yeah.
So there's parts of it that I've had to learn. And, it's, for me, I learned in 2016, I might as well go right here with this. In 2016, I had been crippled for a year. I was told I probably would never walk. This was the second time actually being told I'd never walk without a walking device. I was crippled up really bad. And while I was healing from that, and I was in a pretty intense healing program, and I had a meeting with a psychologist, and the psychologist mentioned for the first time where I heard the letters PTSD. She said, "Oh, that would be PTSD." And that's in 2016 is where I get the and start to research that avenue, and through that, learn about the healing of PTSD. It's not till like 2 years later that I learned I have complex PTSD. And then I start going through the complex. What is complex PTSD? Well, it's PTSD that, starts at a young age and compounds. Some people call it complex, or other people say compounded PTSD, because it's just more episodes over a lifetime of happenings. And, it takes me a while to realize, I'm complex PTSD. And then I start to look for, where did it come from? Where did this originate then? So I started going through my family's history, and my family's history is strange. I'm born in 61. So, the history between 59 and 61, my mother's married. She has a son. Her husband is abusive. And over the course of the time they're together, he beats her and my brother up multiple times. And then, my father is married, and he has 2 daughters in Alberta, and he's living here in Vancouver. And at some point, him and mom meet up. He basically, lets Gary's dad know that he's not welcome to come around or lay his hands on anybody anymore. And my mother and father start a relationship, and I'm not in the picture at this time, but they make plans. And we know what happens when you make plans. Announcing them is a surefire way to hear God laugh. Al Swearingen, Deadwood, quote unquote. Anyways, my parents discuss, here's what we'll do. We'll get our divorces. We'll get married. My mother is pregnant with me at this point. We're going to go to the States. We'll have Stephen in the States. He can have dual citizenship. And, life will be great, blah, blah, blah. And for the first time in my life, I'm early. And probably the only time in my life, because everybody knows I'm late. Now, I've just recently learned, I guess I was told it when I was younger, but it's one of those things that the brain put away. And it's the fact that I'm born early. I'm an incubator baby in the 60s. So I'm born early. I'm put into the incubator. If you follow any of Gabor Mate and his myth of normal in some of what he talks about how his mother had to give him away at a young age. It was concentration camp time, and he's given away. And one of the things he says is, when you don't have your mother or your father there when you're an infant, and you don't get that love and attention, that you automatically write a program. And the program you basically start writing is, I'm not lovable. I can't be lovable because they're not here. So I must not be lovable. Now, I can honestly say that recently I've realized, yes, I've run that program, and I've run it deep, and I've run it heavy, which is part of my healing and modifying. But through that, I realized, I come into the world in a trauma-laden environment. My mother's divorce hasn't come through. And at that time, bastard is a word that's used. So I'm going to be born out of wedlock, and my mother is going to have a bastard child. And I know this affects her because I hear those words. I hear the word bastard child. And at some point, my mother has a talk with me about that. I'm not really a bastard child because technically they were going to get married, blah, 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 type of stuff, right? That's interesting. I'm getting some stuff right now. I'm having some stuff come in from a conversation she had with me that I hadn't remembered. That's rather interesting. But, from that point, I'm already in a chaos. I'm born into a chaos. And then I'm born into a family where my brother is 4 years older than me. And in the 4 years that he's already grown up, he's learned that love from your father is one of these. Love from your father comes with some of this. He's learned that love can't be love without anger. He's learning the conditions that his father has put on his love. And through our life, he lays some of those conditions on me. So we have a difficult relationship, which I don't know is a difficult relationship because to me it's just a normal relationship.
It's just the way your life has, right? So this is we talk about complex PTSD. You have just walked us through the first while of your, the very early years of your life, showing us, the beginnings, and you didn't know, you had no idea.
No.
And not until somebody told you much later in life it was CPTSD.
Yeah.
And then all of this starts coming, all of this realization starts coming. Not necessarily, I was going to say all these memories start coming, but it's not really the memories. It's the realization that comes with the memories at that point in time.
A lot of the memories start to come back as I Yes, as the realization comes in that, oh, there's a lot more here that I don't understand about myself and my brain and this disorder. But
it's an injury, though, really. Disorders are usually something that are, caused by
well, it's
a chemical imbalance. This is more like a broken leg, but for your head. So it's an injury.
There is an injury, but I carry the pattern from the injury. The injury happened. It's a long time ago. What I'm carrying is the pattern from the injury.
Mm-hmm.
So the injury happened, and then I created a pattern. So, I know I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it on our podcast, but when a trauma happens, our brain immediately changes everything about how we process. It immediately goes, what the fuck happened? How did I make this happen? How do I stop it from ever happening again? And then we work on number 3. How do I stop it from happening again? Okay, anywhere I go, I need to know where the darkness is. I need to know where the pain is. I need to know where the exits are. I need to know if there's anybody there that needs rescuing that I can help get the fuck out. And then anywhere you go, every moment you go, if I walk out that door, the first thing I'm doing is looking for the darkness. You write a pattern of looking for the darkness. Yep. And everywhere you go, you're looking for that darkness. Well, if you're looking for darkness, you're going to find darkness.
Yep.
And that's kind of the problem with PTSD and complex PTSD is you start a pattern of looking for the darkness. You see the darkness, and when you're in the darkness, you'll see your darkness. And sometimes our darkness can be real scary, especially if we're looking at the pain from the past or the violence from the past, or those things that have it's left a scar on the brain. But,
yeah, scar
but
tissue.
you can minimize scar tissue. You can heal that up. And how does Gabor say it? He says it quite well, and I can't remember exactly how he says it. We're not the trauma we sustained. We're the patterns we put in place to keep us safe from the trauma we sustained. And the problem is we build dysfunctional patterns. And they keep us safe for short periods. But as time goes on, they become dysfunctional patterns, which no longer serve the purpose and no longer keep us safe. And we become the products of our patterns. And healing is repairing a lot of those dysfunctional patterns, but it's also repairing the dysfunctional or the broken places in the brain, because it does cause injury. That moment that trauma happens and you have the emotional spike, you've blown out a actual physical pathway in your brain. You've blown out a neural pathway and you've created the brain chatter, the noise. You get that stuff going. As more goes, you get more noise. Healing is getting rid of the noise and fixing the patterns. Learning where the patterns come from. That's kind of where we are right now. That's where I am right now. That first interview we did, wow. Like I've done a lot of research on the brain. I've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of data. But understanding the data, I thought I understood the data. But when I did my interview, it puts the data in a whole different place of understanding. And I could say, before we did the interview, I thought I understood the data. Since we've done the interview, I understand the data more. And what I understand is I know nothing about the data. It's just processing and filing. Yeah.
That is a good time, a good spot here to take a little break. It is, already. It went pretty quick. It's break time. This means it's time to hear from our sponsors and pay some bills. You're watching the Mushy Moment live here on Facebook, YouTube, all over the place. CBGTV.com and paceradio.net. We will be back in just over 3 minutes.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. We have everything you need to succeed, and if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back to the Mushy Moment. We are live here at paceradio.net, cbgtv.com, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Boxcast, Roku, like just all over the place. Search us up, you will find us. Welcome back. And today we are talking with my, usually my co-host, today my guest, Steve Mather. We were talking before the break about what the last show triggered, for lack of a better way of putting it, in him for his emotions and thoughts and healing went. And he was starting to delve into his story. And we were talking about, PTSD and CPTSD and that kind of stuff. In talking about your story, before I guess I interrupted and we went off on the bunny trail of PTSD, you were talking about your early life, the fact that even though you weren't necessarily abandoned, you were in an incubator for a while, so you didn't get mom and dad right there. And then, of course, we talked about the fact that your brother thought love came with anger, and he was teaching you that.
Yeah. And he did a good job teaching me that. Actually, the one thing I got to say, and I love you, brother, is he's passed away recently. He taught me to be fearless I'll give him that because he was frickin' fearless. But, you know, he, because he was 4 years older and because it's back in the, 60s and life is a little different and we move around a lot. We live, I grew up in Kamloops. We live all over the place. We're constantly moving. And there's a lot of bush around Kamloops. There's a lot of lakes and mountains and hills. And we do a lot of going through them. And I experience a lot of cool things. But a lot of them I experience in ways that they build trauma within me. Things like, back then we'd hop on our bikes and we'd be gone. We'd go riding and be home for dinner. And you make sure you get home, 5:30 for 6:30 for dinner. You have dinner at the table with the family and da-da-da-da-da. And, many of the places we grew up, we'd take off and just go hiking up in the mountains. Like there used to be lots of black widows. So I know when I'm small, I have memories of when we're small, we'd go to wood piles and Gary would have a stick and we'd have a jar and then he'd poke the black widow and they'd curl up and he'd go, okay, it's dead. Pick it up and throw it in the jar. And then I'd pick it up and throw it in the jar. And then, of course, it wouldn't be dead. It'd be moving around. And it was, just one of those things. We collected them. And because I got one, well, it didn't hurt me. So just grab another one. And then after a while, I'm the guy grabbing the spiders, throwing them in the jar type thing. There's a point, in the Kamloops area, there's the Thompson River, and there's the North Thompson, the South Thompson. They come together, and the Thompson feeds the mighty Fraser, and it's a pretty big river. There's a lot of undercurrents where it hits. There's a couple of bridges there, and a lot of people jump off the bridges into the water. There's been a lot of people drowned from the undercurrents, etc. And my brother's a good swimmer. I'm not. I can swim long distance. I can't pass tests. I kind of sink, but I can swim lots. But, the first time I swim across that river, I'm 7 years old, maybe. I failed floaters. I failed pre-beginners. I failed beginners. Can't float. My brother's a better swimmer. And if I'm 7, he's 8, 9, 10, 11. I might be 8. He might be 12 at that point, but I don't think so. We've gone to the park. We've taken a bus and we've gone to the park, which is, we've gone across the bridge and across the river, and we're at this big park, Riverside Park. And we spend our bus money going to go home on ice cream. And then I think we're going to walk home. And then Gary says, we're just going to swim across the river here. If we aim here, the water will drift us down and we'll get out over by our house over there. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And he's, oh no, it'll be easy. You just flip up on your back and you look at the sky and you kick like a little frog or a little pug. And if anything goes wrong, I'm a good swimmer. I'll stay cool. So off we go. Now at that point, I'm realizing in hindsight when I look back, I already know there's no fight, there's no flight. Just shut up and do what you're told and breathe. And part of what I remember is the emotional attachment to the fear as I'm going across the river. What I've learned is a lot of the memories that my brain kept are the high points of moments like that, where my brain kind of didn't make sense of it. Like, this is a moment I should be scared, but I don't have time to be scared, so I'll just keep going. I guess it would be my first type of dissociation. I don't know. I'm kind of analyzing it right now. I'm observing and analyzing it. But, that's one of the first ones that I remember of that avenue of things. And then later on, we jump off those bridges. We end up out at Shoe Swap Lake. jumping from Copper Island. I don't know. I'm probably 10 or 12 when I'm jumping from like 60 and 80 feet. I'm jumping off the top of the Red Bridge and running I got a crazy bike. I hung out with a lot of people that were just a little crazier than me, so that I seemed a little more normal. So while I'd be, sitting on the trestle at the top of the bridge, ready to jump, and I stand up and get ready, my buddy Kevin would start at the back and run the little 10-inch beam and jump off. And it was like, yeah, ooh, that's really scary. Wouldn't want to do that, and then I jump. But, I have to give my brother kudos, because I did some really cool and exciting things. And even though to me my life was normal, when I talk about a lot of the things, I realize it's not so normal. We would, at one point, we lived out on the Indian Reserve in Kamloops, up by the mountain there. We'd go up into the mountain, and it was all shale and stuff, and there'd be rattlers up there. So the game was, I would run through and then point where we'd hear the rattlers, and then he'd come over with the big stick and kill the rattler. So that was, one of our games. And, it was...
Meanwhile, I'm playing Snakes and Ladders in my living room.
And I know that Gary and I had a lot of fights through our life as well. Like one of the last ones is, it gets brutal, and I do a flying jump kick, nail at both feet in the face, and then he comes back, drops me, and lands both feet on my chest and cracks my ribs. Like that's one of the last violent ones where we went, okay, this needs to separate. But sorry, drifting.
That's okay. I understand. I was about to pop in and take over and let you drift. I was going to something that you've taught me during our friendship is that to accept people at the level that at whatever point or part they're at, or like where they've been taught, and one thing that that you've said a lot about your brother is that this is what he thought was normal. So he thought that he was doing the right thing and teaching you love. And he really loved you. He truly, truly loved you. He did protect you. He did adore you. You were his little brother. And he was loving you in the way he was taught. He was doing the best with the tools that he had.
He loved me in the only way he knew how to.
Yeah. 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 And, you've come forward and you've learned, and I shouldn't really say come forward, but you've learned that that's what it was. And you say, well, we weren't normal, but for the tools that you had and the lessons that you were given, you were normal.
It was our normal.
It absolutely was. Yeah.
I don't actually learn until after 2016 when I start to talk to people
that it wasn't.
How my normal differs from most people.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Because there's honestly, I wouldn't even want to go through everything because there's just too much. Honestly, it's a weird little trial. There's things. If I just hit high points at 6 years old, I get a bike, my first bike, and him and I go riding, and we go down a hill, and it's it's the first time my dad's let go, and I'm able to ride on my own. And okay, I'm going to go riding with Gary. So we go down this hill, and then he cranks his left, and he goes down an alley, and I don't know, you lean at this point, kind of steer the bike. So I crank the steer, the handlebars, and it's a solid tire. It's not blow up tires at this point. It's solid rubber tire. And that bike goes, I fly off. I take off half my face in the gravel. I'm out cold. He runs off to get mom, dad. They come down. I get taken to the hospital because I'm out cold. And And for the next couple of weeks, I go to the doctors every second day, and they're pulling gravel out of my face. And I learned later that it's one of those moments where I consciously go inside my head and go, I don't want to feel this kind of pain, and I turn the switch off. And that I leave that switch on for years. I don't turn that switch on until just a couple of years ago. I learned how to turn that switch back on. But, there's, I don't know where to go. It's funny because I look through now and I go, well, there's, I don't know what would be the high points to tell people.
Well, do you mind if I bring up a story that you've told me?
Sure, bring it up.
We talk about, you said you didn't learn it was not normal until 2016, but that made a story that you have told me a couple of times pop up where you were visiting, you were over at a friend's place for supper. And he had told you stories about his house and you didn't quite believe him. And so you went to his mother and said,
Mark.
Yeah.
My buddy Mark. Oh, yeah.
You can tell the story much better than me.
Oh, it's funny because this is a cognitive dissonance moment for me that rattles. And that's all it takes. Sometimes we just need to be the cognitive dissonance that rattles. So he said to me one time, we toured in a band together. It was a bunch of us that grew up in Kamloops together. We went out in a rock band, and some of the other guys were extreme like me. The band was it was called Rude Awakening, and we were a fairly extreme batch of guys, and it was a hard rock band. And the two guitar players that actually punched each other out at points. They all growing up together. Our normals all included that type of stuff. And one day I'd had an argument with Pooch, and I threw a pair of scissors at him, and he scooted out of the room. And Mark said to me, he said, I don't understand you guys. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, the way you guys throw your anger at each other and the way you guys behave to each other, I don't understand it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I grew up in a family where nobody yelled at each other and nobody hit each other. And I was like, fuck off. You got an older brother and an older sister. Your older brother's a fucking martial artist. There's no way. And he says to me, no, I've never experienced that. That's just in our house. Nobody raised a loud word. Nobody got mad and yelled at somebody, and nobody ever laid a hand on anybody. And those words rattled in my head for years. I was like, that's impossible. That's impossible. Nobody can. So a few years later, I'm at a Christmas dinner with his family, and I'm in the kitchen helping his mom. And I asked her, I go, Mrs. Kenny, Mark told me one time that, he'd never been hit. He'd never been yelled at. His brothers and sisters had never hit him or yelled at him. And I just want to know, is that actually true? And she was horrified that I would ask that question. She truly was. And in that moment of her being horrified, I recognized her truth. And she was like, why would anybody treat somebody they love that way? No, of course not. Nobody ever gets hit here. We don't talk that way. If there's a problem, we sit down and we discuss it. And it was like, huh? What?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a realization moment for you.
And I have to say, my mother was that way. My mother always sat me down and discussed stuff with me. My dad was always out working and not around much. He was out, working out building things, and sometimes he would only come back on weekends. And that time he was a construction worker. And I'm realizing most of my life patterns are actually ingrained through my brother, through our doing. Wow. A lot of behaviors there.
So, this is what you had to deal with early on in life. And, you know, so this is some of your early trauma. And you just brought up the fact that you toured with rock bands, you know, whether you were in this rock band you were just talking about, you went on to be a very, you know, proficient and sought after sound guy. But this also led you to a life of packing away the past using drugs.
Yeah, drugs and alcohol were quite proficient in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that you know, and I've never asked you this, but would you say that you were an addict to them? Like, were you addicted, or was it just part of the lifestyle?
I would have to say for me, it was part of the lifestyle. The one thing I found was I seemed to be able to go real hard and watch all the people around me fall. Be it through I fell a lot with the alcohol. Like I never drank to drink. I drank to get drunk.
Yeah.
The whole point of drinking alcohol was to get drunk, and it became a pattern. But it wasn't a pattern that I couldn't just stop and walk away from. It wasn't something I really enjoyed. It was just something that made me fit in. And it would create I had a character mayhem that would come out. When I drink, there's a character that comes out. When I drink, I realize that, you know, my trauma has made it so that at some point I've realized that there was a saying I used to live by: if it doesn't matter 10 years from now, it doesn't matter now. And I would be able to process things in a way that I would go, this won't matter 10 years from now. So I would do something stupid and crazy and get the laughs and get the ha-has or get the whatevers. But I would watch. I was always observing the other people's responses to my actions. And I would go, wow, look at the weird responses that doing this can get. Isn't that silly? You know, and a lot of the things I would do were silly, stupid little things. But a lot of that, you know, I'm looking and I'm going, no, there's so much more trauma from when I'm younger that leads up to those behaviors, right? Like, I'm just having a flash of when I'm little, God, how old am I? I'm maybe 4 or 5 years old. And we go to one of the corner stores. And at this point in time, you can write your name on a thing. I remember going when I'm maybe 6 years old and I'm picking up cigarettes and stuff from the store from my mom. My mom phones, I show up, they give it to me. I sign the thing that's what we got. And off I go. And it's all handwritten in a little book under the Mather family. You know, it's that type of a thing. But I remember the first time, I don't remember the first time I stole. I can't say I remember the first time I stole, but I remember the first time that Gary and I were in the store and we picked up my dad's cowboy boots from the guy that had repaired them. And Gary was filling the boots with candy and I'm carrying the boots. And then he says, okay, I'm going to go get the stuff that mom wants. You go stand over by the door. So I'm standing over by the door and then he pays for the stuff. And then we're about to leave and I trip and the boots hit the ground. And all this candy goes all over the ground. And the lady at the desk goes, were you stealing all that candy? And Gary dumps out the boots and goes, no. And he looks at me, he goes, run. And then we run out. Well, they know my parents. So it's kind of silly of us to do. But at that point, you know, that's one of my first but the stealing doesn't stop there. We do a lot of stealing for quite a few years. And I'm probably about 9 or 10. So we've been stealing since I've been like 4 or 5. And I'm probably about 9 or 10 when I kind of finally go, I don't want to do this anymore. So we've gone from stealing from stores, stealing pop bottles. We've been caught a couple of times. And now we're breaking into people's places, their garages, You know, it's scary as hell. The whole heart's going, and oh, you get addicted to that adrenaline rush, and I'm just following. I'm the follower following Gary. Now, Gary in his head thinks I'm his partner in this and that I want to be doing this. Now, I don't want to be doing this. I'm just not saying anything. I'm just recording my trauma as we go through these episodes. And, you know, at one point there's a couple, I'll get to a couple of, at least one magical moment out of it. Is we go to this place and we break into this guy's garage and we steal a whole bunch of his old memorabilia. And it's World War II memorabilia. World War II might be World War I memorabilia. And years later, I find some of this stuff. And I find some of his postcards and his pictures. Now, I've beat myself up for years. At this point, I'm about 24, 25. I've been touring for a couple of years. I've come back home for a break. And now one of the episodes of thievery is I'm 6 years old, 7 years old, maybe. I think I'm 6 because we're buying a jumper for Danny and I'm a few years older than him. So my brother Gary gets me to hold this crystal set, and it's a salt and pepper shaker and a creamer and a sugar bowl and all beautiful crystal. And he gets me to go stand by the door. And we buy this stuff for my little brother Danny, and he goes through and pays for it. We're leaving. And I go, did we steal this? And he goes, no, we didn't steal this. Okay, I'm fine with that. Well, my mom gets it, and she's in tears. And it becomes her favorite thing. And every holiday after that, this crystal gets brought out. And she tells a story about how her son saved up their money from the newspaper deliveries that they did, and they bought their mother this crystal set. And Gary later, after Christmas, like after that Christmas, when she's put on her big, oh my God, and the tears and the whole works, Gary later goes, we did steal it. We got it for free. He thinks it's awesome. Me, it's and then every event after that, out it comes. So years later, I actually go to the store and I give them money and I say, look, you know, I don't care if you guys spend this on beer. I don't care. It's hurt my heart long enough. I need to do this to try and help myself heal. And I pay for that crystal set. And, you know, there's a couple little episodes of things like that. That guy, Mr. Clapperton, where we'd taken all of his memorabilia stuff. You know, I find that and I take it from storage and I go to Mr. Clapperton's. I go, fuck this. And I knock on the door. And I tell him, hey, I'm sorry. But years ago, my brother and I, when we were little, we came and we stole a bunch of stuff. Now, Mr. Clapperton was the cookie man. When we were kids, it was Clapperton Drive. They were the family that owned that whole area, had given up the land. He had the last family house on the hill, and it was Clapperton Drive, and it was Mr. Clapperton. The kids knew if, you know, when you were on your way home, you could just stop there and knock on the door, and he'd hand out cookies to the kids, and we'd have cookies, and off we would go. So he was kind of known as the cookie man. So I showed up there, and I've got the stuff, and he invites me in. He starts looking at the pictures as I'm holding him. Starts talking about some of the pictures, and he invites me in. And we have tea. And he goes through the pictures. And in the end, he thanks me. He thanks me because those pictures would have just been down in that garage still covered in dust. And here I've brought them into him. And we've gone through a bunch of his memories. And it actually became a beautiful moment. Which I'm really happy to remember and share, actually. But there was years of me carrying that pain of the trauma of stealing that shit. You know, I'm a little kid. We do a lot of stuff, and I know it's wrong, and it's not in my heart to do it. And I carry a lot of that pain for a long time, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that time again to stop and take a little break. It is medication time now. Time for us to go run some ads and pay some bills. You are here watching us on Mushie Moment. live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Roku. We're coming to you from paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. We'll be back in just about 3.5 minutes.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com. CBG TV, broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One's called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Mushy Moment. We are live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com, streaming all over the place. I am back with our guest, Steve Mather, and we are hearing Steve's story. Welcome back, Steve.
Hello. It's weird when you're telling your own story. It's like, you never really kind of view your story. And when you're sitting kind of going through it, it's like, wow, there's a lot of shit there to unpack sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I was kind of looking through going, okay, well, there's some stuff with Gary and I that we went through, growing up, be it running through the mountains, jumping off of bridges. There's one time we go to Jensen's Bridge. The little guy a lawyer owns an island, Jensen Island, Mr. Jensen, and he's got a bridge that you got to drive over. And it's a big back eddy of water, and we go there, and And Gary talks me into jumping off the bridge first. We're going to test everything out. We're going to jump off the bridge into the water. So, of course, he gets me to do the first jump. But so I jump off, and it's muddy goop at the bottom. And I just go, and I'm stuck in the goop. So he's up top waiting for me to come up, and I don't come up. So, of course, he dives in and pulls me out of the muck. And there's a lot of him saving me, which I guess builds a certain style of trauma relationship. But in the hindsight, I realized there was a lot of him saving me because he would have an idea and then I would be the test pilot on the idea. So I would be, okay, you got to jump. And if anything goes wrong, we'll swim across. If anything goes wrong, and there was many a time he did save me. There was times in the river where, we jumped off of things and it was a little rough and violent, and he had to scoot down, 200 yards down the river and then suck me out over there with a branch or whatever type of ideas. But, there's a lot of that kind of crap happens. Then there's, one of the big things is his words are, anybody that ever touches me, he ends up beating them up. Nobody beats up my brother but me. Period. And, so I learned that. The other thing I get from him is you need to grow up tougher and stronger. There's bad people out there. I'm teaching you how to grow up tougher and stronger.
And not to interrupt and jump forward, but that's exactly what I'm about to do, because that lesson ended up saving you later on in life. You were in a couple of situations that tougher and stronger ended up being almost what helped you.
Well, the first time I get jumped by a gang. I'm in grade 9. I get jumped by a gang in Kamloops, and there's a clown that's running the gang, and it's actually a bunch of kids that I go to school with, and some of them later apologized to me. Just in the last few years, some of them have found me and apologized to me for their part. They carried it their whole lifetime as well, because he held me down by the hair and had people boot me in the face, and I got a pretty good shit kicking at that point. And that's one of the first ones that happens. That happens. It happens more than once. That's how I learn I have PTSD. I'm talking to the psychologist, and I go, "Oh, well, that would kind of be like the patterns you'd put in place if you were jumped by a gang." And she says, "Oh, well, that would only happen once in a lifetime. So, that would be a trauma thing, but probably not." And I look at her, I go, "Well, no, I've been jumped 4 times in my life, twice by gangs and once mistaken by a Hell's Angel collector for a wrong guy and thumped. And then once a guy walked into a restaurant and booted our guitar player in the face, knocked him out of his seat, and sucker punched me. And the battle broke out in a restaurant in the middle of nowhere while we're in the middle of eating." So there are those traumatic moments that happen throughout as well. But after the first one, after I get gang jumped, my mother kind of goes, "Okay, judo is in Kamloops at that time." So they put me into judo, and I start my journey on learning some self-defense and empowering myself. And it goes good. I still have, I still maintain, I didn't go high in the belts, but I've still maintained some of the skills, and they've come in handy throughout the years. Being in a rock band, you tend to end up in different circumstances that aren't normal either.
Yeah.
They were normal for us, but to most people, they're not normal circumstances. And, you get invited to the party afterwards, and then all of a sudden there's people at the party that don't like the band anymore. It's stuff just happens. And then being on the road, there's also because I sit there and go, well, what are the things that might have added to my trauma? Well, I've been first on scene at multiple car accidents. I've been in. I won money when I turned 21 because people bet that I wouldn't live to be 21. And at the time I laughed and was like, what the fuck? I look back now and I can see, because by the time I was 21, I'd already been in a couple motorcycle accidents. I'd already been in half a dozen car accidents. I'd already totaled off 3 vehicles. I can see why people wouldn't think that I would end up living. And, you know, even to this day, I got angels sitting on my shoulders, and I know it. I've been in over half a dozen motorcycle accidents. My last one just a couple of years ago, I'm still recovering from it. That one I didn't let people know. I didn't make it that public. But, you know, and car accidents, man, one block before a light, I look at a guy driving me home one day. He's a friend of a friend, and he's been drinking. And I go, you should slow down. I hope you don't mind if I buckle up. This is back in the days, seatbelts weren't legal, and they weren't a thing made legal at the time. And I buckle up, just a lap belt. And he looks down at his dash and he goes, "We're doing 100 miles an hour." And I look up and the light goes red and the car pulls out. We smoke it. And, you know, I smash the windshield with my face, and he smashes the windshield, slices his head wide open, comes back, lands on me, gets blood all over. The car smashes into an embankment, and he hits the window again, and the blood smears all over. And, you know, it's a big episode that happens. It's one of those, you know, a newspaper episode happens out of it. And, you know, I'm lucky. The only thing I have still from it, I've got a blue vein on my nose from the scarf where it, you know, sliced me open when I smashed the windshield. But it could have been a lot worse. You know, there's been a few of those moments, and I was first on scene for a guy in an MG. That this one was weird because you know, I start psychedelics when I'm young. First time I do mushrooms, I think I'm 16, and my buddy Byron and we go out to a lake, and we've got mushrooms. We go out to a lake to camp, and we do the mushrooms. And that's the first time I realized everything is energy. The universe shows me that. It shows me the energy. It shows me the dance. It shows me the colors. And that's the first time I go, it's one of the first times I feel the calm of the universe. Oh, that's interesting. Because I'm part of that dance. And it's one of those moments, it's a high point, but it's one of those moments that, you know, stands out in my memories when I look back. Things have to, for me to remember them, they had to be loud. I don't hear quiet. So, you know, that was a loud moment. There was a lot happened in there. And the experience I got was like, oh, everything is alive. Everything is energy. Everything is vibration. And even the things that we think aren't, like rocks, you know, they are. It's all alive. Everything is just vibrating energy. And the form we see it in, we have a definition of life. But in its finest form, we're all the same energy vibrating. Mm. So really, in my reality, everything is life. And that was probably the first time where that's the first time where my eyes open and I go, wow, this is intense. Through that, there's a lot of, it's weird. When I look at my life, I go, wow, have I encountered a lot of strange things? But I'm looking at it differently now, because to me, they weren't strange things. They're just my life. But, you know, the guy in the MG upside down, me and my buddy Rod have done acid. We've gone, fuck, we've had enough. We're going to do acid. We go out to the club. We have some fun. And then we're up in Kamloops. Let's go to Penticton. So we're going to drive like 3.5 hours to Penticton. And then we're going to lay on the beach at the water and have a great time. So we're on our way. And we're driving along, and it's like, holy fuck, look at that car in the ditch. I wonder if there's anybody in it. So you pull over, and you walk over, and it's an MG upside down in the ditch. And yeah, there is somebody in it. And the accidents kind of just happened. There's no cell phones at this time. And we're high as fuck. So, you know, I've got some first aid. Rod's got some first aid. So we get what we can. We lower them out of the car. We don't want to do too much. We don't know what's broken. He's coherent and in pain. So we get him out of the car. We lay him down. We flag a car. It's fucking 3 or 4 in the morning by this point, in the middle of the highway, that isn't really driven at 4 or 5 in the morning. So we flag a vehicle when it comes by, and then he's got to go to the next town and tell somebody so they can send somebody out. So we're there when everybody shows up, and there's like ambulance and police and fire trucks, and everybody shows up, and they're asking questions, and and all of a sudden the police are talking to the ambulance, who are talking to the fire engine guys, and they're all on the guy. And Rod and I realize we're high as fuck and we got to get out of here. So we hop in our car and drive away. But, that moment, it leaves a little bit in there because Buddy was broken up. There was a bit of blood. We had, there's the stuff your brain records of the scene. And, there's been a few first on scene moments for me that have placed those weird moments in my brain of I guess having to deal with other people's stuff, like people with cuts and blood, and wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was that many of them, actually. I don't want to go through them, but as I'm looking, it's like, wow, I've experienced quite a few of that type of stuff. My buddy Weasel was out a couple of months ago when we were talking, and I asked him, I said, were you in the band when we were heading up to Fort McMurray and that trailer hit that lady on the side of the road? And he looked at me, he said, yes. And then we discussed it. We're in the middle of freaking nowhere. And there's a car driving with a trailer in front of us. And the trailer does one of these, except there's a lady walking on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. And the trailer hits her and knocks her off the road. And we're in a school bus behind. So we stop and we go over there and we go to pull her out of the ditch. And I know Weasel's there with me and Pooch. And I think Rick was there as well. But we go to take her out, and Ian and I, Weez and I are picking her up, and there's something weird. And I go to push it in place, and then I realize, oh, it's a big chunk of her leg. And in that moment, I let go of it because I realize what it is. And Ian watches it flop, and then he grabs it and he puts it in, and then he realizes what it is. We get her up there and we lay her out and we get her wrapped in some blankets, and she'd been in her and her boyfriend had gotten in a fight, and he kicked her out in the middle of nowhere, hours from the nearest place. And when people got emergency to show up, there was some hunters that had shown up. It was bear season. There's bears in the area, and we're finding out what the story is. And then her boyfriend shows up. I guess he's gone whatever, and he home, and then decided he better come back. And he shows up, and the hunters are standing there. And Buddy shows up, oh my God, and one of the guys just drops him. Just drops him. Who leaves someone they love out on the side of the road in bear country in the middle of nowhere? So that one leaves a little bit of an imprint, and it did for Weasel too, because when we got discussing it, he said to me, I wondered if it was real or if it was just something I dreamt at one point. And that's what happens to me. It's like, was that episode real? There's a lot of those. Wow, was that real? But
that's a CPTSD thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, as you know, when you said you asked me about doing the interview for me, and going through the kids section wasn't that, it was tough, but it wasn't that bad. It's current and it's in there. But having to look back on my own stuff, it's like, wow, if I tried to do this a year ago, I'd be broken in tears. But at the point I'm at now in doing it, I'm looking going, what an amazing and exciting and different story I have.
That's the power of healing.
It's, it's funny because right now there's a part of me that goes to little episodes and there's a part of me that wants to have the broken heart. It wants to go, oh, look at that. Oh my God. But I have to go to the end of it, which is you got through it. You got through it and you're here. Wow. Wow. Don't drag the pain and the sorrow with it. Bring the strength and the resilience that you gained from it with you.
That leads to a question that I don't want to ask until after the break, or a subject that I don't want to get into till after the break. So we're going to take break a few minutes early this time, and then we're going to come back for the last segment with my guest, Steve Mather. So that means that it is medication time, and we are going to play the sponsor ads. We get to hear from the sponsors, pay the bills. You are watching Mushie Moment here on paceradio.net and cbgtv.com, streaming wherever we can, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. And we will be right back in about 3 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll see you soon.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Welcome back to the Mushie Moment. We are here live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com, streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Roku, Fire Stick TV. We're just kind of all over the place. If you search us up, we're pretty easy to find, to be honest. During the show today, we have been chatting with my normally my co-host, today my guest, Mr. Steve Mather. We have been talking about Steve's story. We had Steve on last week. And he talked about what it was like to be the father of twin girls who were addicts. And we got to hear the story from the dad's perspective. And today we are talking to him about the rest of Steve's story, including how he healed. He talked a minute ago about the first time that he did, was it mushrooms, where you got to see the energy, and we have both been through that multiple times. So I get it. I understand what you're saying. But if we bring it forward to when you started the healing part of this journey here a few years ago, rediscovering psychedelics and discovering new psychedelics, and with your research in nutrition, can you tell us about that? Because I know that I really enjoy it when you tell that, and I know that it's a big part of the story. Because it shows that healing is possible after all of this.
Yeah. I guess when I find out I have PTSD and I bury myself in learning about it, I learn why I've been medicated my whole life. I have complex PTSD and all of the subset behaviors that can come along with it. I've been medicated my whole life for. So, the borderline personality disorders, the ADD, the ADHD, the anxiety, the panic attacks. Like, I've been medicated for all of it my whole life. I guess starting around 8, I guess, is when I can start remembering the discussions and stuff happening. So I honestly, none of it was loud enough for me to retain it, and hopefully a lot of it will come back later. But, what I learned is that the microdosing, as I'm studying about PTSD, they can continue to medicate the behaviors with the drugs that I've already been on that haven't worked for me. Or I can try and find a way to healing. And my mother had always taught me that the universe always provides remedy. Mankind won't always provide remedy. And she would say, if you can't find your remedy in mankind, then look for it in nature. So, natural stuff, natural products was something I'd been educated on, and I used mushrooms and LSD throughout my life on the road. I microdosed without knowing I was microdosing with Scooby snacks, etc. and as I'm learning about PTSD, I'm realizing, those Scooby snacks I used to do back in the 90s and the 2000s, those are a form of microdosing. And everything I'm reading about how you can manage PTSD, it looks like it leads to this type of a pathway, which explained to me why I fell in love with them when I was using them, because they were actually working for me and they were actually fixing things without me even knowing I was fixing things. So I learn about microdosing, and then I create a line of microdoses for myself. I start on learning about nutrition and health. I have a buddy that's a guru, and I call him my guru. I'm sure he hates it. I hate when anybody calls me a guru. But he's got 30 years in nutrition and nootropics and adaptogens and bodybuilding and just all around nutrition and how it works within the body and the pathways. And so I would always bug him. I would ask him stuff, and I would be working on things. And so I put together my line of microdoses, and that line of microdoses had reishi, cordyceps, lion's mane, maitake, shiitake, a bunch of blends of natural, wild, and organic mushrooms, and psilocybin. And then with that, it had ashwagandha, ginkgo biloba, Siberian ginseng. Those are things for nootropics for calm, focus, energy, and the other ones were for healing, boosting the immune system. The psilocybin compresses the amygdala generation, which is your fear. It lights up new neural pathways, gives the brain neuroplasticity. Everything else in the blend helped that to heal. So I created my original blend, and I was utilizing that. And my buddy John he's also PTSD, and he was using mushrooms, and he started to try them and gave some to his friends and said, "Hey, you got to share this. You don't get to keep this. This fucking shit works, and it's amazing." and so that relationship started there. And as we were going along, I kept researching, because I'm not trying to create product. I'm trying to heal, and I'm finding my way out. And I know there is a way out. So I'm walking that pathway and creating the tools that I need to get myself out. And I realized that in the research that I was microdosing lion's mane, I was microdosing reishi, I was microdosing turkey tail. What the fuck for? Eat that shit like it's going out of style, because that stuff heals. It boosts your immune system. It rocks. So don't microdose it. Take it. So since then, I've created, the powder that's that blend of mushrooms, and I've got some stuff added to that, the rhodiola, which brings some calm and quiet and healing within that same system. And since I learned about the cacao, I've added in the pure organic raw cacao. Why? Because that generates stem cell growth. That helps the heart. It helps the immune system. It's synergistic with the mushroom blend to make my healing that much more powerful. So I take spoonfuls of that, and it sits in my coffee, and I frickin' macrodose that shit. But what I did with the microdose is I created another one called Main Event. And that one, I've got the lion's mane with the psilocybin, and then I've stepped into more of the adaptogens and nootropics. That's where I've got the magnesium althreonate in there. So the magnesium passes the blood-brain barrier, and it helps with that whole psilocybin blood-brain barrier thing. It has the niacin in it. The same reason the niacin is in there, that blood-brain barrier, the flush aspect. It has the alpha GPC for the added calm. I went, let's take out the stuff we can macrodose and put in the things we're supposed to microdose that can help heal the brain pathways, help with finding the calm that one needs to readjust their pattern of thinking. Because not only do we get damaged pathways, we have to adjust our thinking. We adjust our thinking for the trauma, and then we adjust our thinking for the damaged pathways. And as we heal the pathways, we need to also heal the way the pathway gets healed. We're still using different pathways,
which is awesome. But let's bring it back to Steve's story. Okay. So you're creating these, you're microdosing, but you eventually continue with other medicines too. Like, these have done a lot to help you. And the science behind them is as I've learned over the past couple of years.
Somebody that invites me to go to Mexico.
Yes. And you meet this person by mutual help, though. And that's the world of psychedelics, which is beautiful. You actually meet this person because you go to help them.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they turn around and invite you on this beautiful journey.
a life-changing healing journey. Yeah. Which is funny because I was brought into their life to help them with their healing. And in the end, you know, what it did for me, I ended up in the jungle in Mexico doing ayahuasca. I did a lot of psychedelics there. I did mushrooms a few times up in the mountains where mushrooms were first introduced to the Western world. I did ayahuasca in the jungle. I did changa down on the beach in Mahawal. I got my first experiences. I don't know how to word it because mushrooms is its own dimension in there. All the medicines speak different languages. So I got my first introductions to the different languages that the medicine could speak to give me the data I needed to find my healing pathway.
Now, did you know about a lot of these medicines before you went down to Mexico? Like
I knew nothing about changa. I knew nothing about cacao. I'd been seeking ayahuasca. I'd heard about ayahuasca. I'd been seeking ayahuasca. I'd communicated. Ayahuasca had brought me all the way back around to talking to people about iboga here. And I know that is where I have to go. But at this point, I had been seeking ayahuasca and I was brought to ayahuasca.
And then ayahuasca, where like I said, like you said, you were brought, you went to ayahuasca, you went for that, but it brought you to all of these other beautiful, incredible medicines.
Yes. Well, it allowed me to make changes within myself so that those people could appear that I needed to have in my life that could introduce me to more of the medicines.
Yeah.
You've got to, for the healing to appear, you have to be ready. And sometimes we think we're ready and we're not. And sometimes we think we aren't and we find out we are. And in those moments, the Aya opened my eyes and opened my heart and healed me enough that I went, oh, the healing comes through these medicines. It's through natural, it's through plant, and that's where I'll find the healing, not just the medicating. Yeah, where do you want to go?
Yeah, well, no, medicating, just a side note popped up in my head. You know, you get healing instead of medicating. I find medicating is a Band-Aid. It can lead to healing, but medicating is really just kind of saying, let's just fix it for now.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. So you went down there and you did a lot of this medicine with your friend. You guys were able to help each other through the whole experience, be a mirror for each other and, you know, help those things along, which, you know, like when you tell the stories, I mean, you know, we've sat and we've shared stories and they've been amazing. So, I mean, I've heard some of them and they're really beautiful. But then you have to come back and you integrate and you continue to do medicine and you continue, at least for me, I mean, every time I go, I get a new tool or I'm able to make a tool that, you know, I have been taught stronger. You know, and then I have to come home and I have to integrate it in and allow, and I find that that's where the true healing starts for me anyway. Like it really happens then. Like, I mean, the medicine comes along and gives you the tools. You have to take the tools and put them to work in your life or else they mean nothing.
Yeah,
really. Yeah. So
I find the medicine allows me to remove a layer that I've built around me to keep myself safe. And it lets me know I can achieve that space. And then I have to figure out how to get back to where the medicine took me. The medicine allows me to let go. And then this layer goes, layer of pain, layer of trauma, layer of tension, layer of thought, just a layer leaves. And I find myself going, oh, what is this beautiful place that I'm in? I knew you existed. And then over time, things start to come back in from that moment. But I've experienced the moment So I know it exists and I know it's possible to get there. Now where my struggle comes in is my brain enters again and goes, holy fuck, that was a mind-blowing experience. How do I get there again? Except you don't get there by doing and thinking. You get there by undoing and unthinking. And it appears you're there. You're always there. You just have to stop all of your doing and be a part of the doing. And you get to experience that harmony of you being in harmony with the doing rather than being out of harmony. Because the brain will tend to put us out of harmony. Humanity is out of harmony with nature. If we try to sync to humanity, then we're going to feel out of sorts because we're out of harmony with everything else. And we struggle to be a part of that community, that society, and in so doing, those of us that are sensitive to frequency and hypervigilant and hypersensitive, we go, this doesn't feel right. We want to pull away. Well, we're not pulling away. We're moving towards nature. It's just this one's out of harmony. So what does the medicine do? The medicine shows me that harmony exists. And all I have to do is remove a layer and I can feel more harmony. So my goal is to feel that harmony without having to do the medicines. But for now, the different medicines show me they're all different frequencies. You harmonize with frequencies. So if I'm out of sort and out of harmony in the frequency zone that mushrooms speak, doing the mushrooms can bring me into harmony there. Bufo can bring me into harmony in the frequencies that Bufo speaks. Right? Meditation will bring me into harmony in the frequency spectrum that meditation speaks. But finding that it's all here. It's letting go of all of the frequency and the damaged frequencies and the out of harmony frequencies that I've allowed myself to gather. And the more I can release those, the more I can find that, oh, look, I'm in harmony with the universe and I'm okay. And the medicine shows me that. It allows me to get there and I go, oh, I'm okay. I just think I'm not. There's the words, think. Thinking throws us out of harmony, especially if we follow the programs of what we're taught through our society, which is we're not good enough, we deserve better, we deserve more, we should be more. It's bullshit. We are all we need to be, and we just need to recognize that we're all we need to be. Now, if I could remember these words that I speak and keep them in the front of my head, I would have no need for any healing. What was Sadhguru? I think it's his quote. I can't remember if it's his quote. The happiest man on the planet is the man generating the happiest thoughts. It is that simple. Where do you let your brain lay? Well, as trauma-ridden people, we let it lay in the gutter, looking at all the darkness, looking at the shit. Why? We've been shit kicked into the gutter. We're used to that view. Sometimes we feel at home there. Well, the avatar can feel however it wants. The spirit, it's up there. The spirit is everything. The spirit is all around. The spirit is the essence of love. And the more we can bring that love in unconditionally and wholly, the more we can be that love and not be the guy in the gutter.
Something else I'd like to talk about, if it's okay. if we combine last week's show and this week's show, I mean, last week we talked about what it was like for you as a dad to two girls who were going through what your girls go through. You've watched for a number of years, you've watched them struggle. And then you decided that you had to walk your path and you had to heal yourself. And in the last number of months, that's kind of paid off, and not just for your own healing. The whole leading by example
Yes.
is starting to come in.
Yes.
And
where they've, rather than me chasing the girls, they've said, hey, we see you healing. We see you working. We see you walking the pathway. We see you leading, and we want to follow. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hoping that my pathway is going to bring me the people that can help them on their next steps when they're ready. Gareth and Mark.
Miriam, Anki.
Miriam, Anki. Everybody else that's hanging out there going, I'll help. Anyways. Just a little plug for the universe. But you know, I'm seeing changes, and I'm feeling changes in myself. Personally, I think we went through the planet went through the last 20 years of brutal energy, and it was a real swing down. And every energy has up and down swings. It has a pattern. And I have a feeling we're on that curve back up to start coming up into some beautiful, light energy. And, that's all I got. Love wins.
Love wins.
Love wins.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And, the leading by example, it's winning. And being able to be free with their thoughts. As you've discovered last week, and I hope that you will discover this week, even if you do have some hard times, that getting it out and helping it release and being able to refile it, it's a huge healing tool.
A massive healing tool.
Yeah, and we've heard from both of your girls that, it's meant a lot to them. So like it's really beautiful to see that side of it happening as well. And that speaks volumes to anybody on the outside. It's like, okay, well, now I'm just going to continue to walk my healing path, and show others. I don't need to preach. I'll tell people what I'm doing, but I don't need to tell them what it'll do for them. They'll see that in what it does for me. And that's all I have to do is tell people what I'm doing and keep doing it.
Yep. Yeah. Because, there's everybody has a story. And what I've found is, there's a lot of people tell their story and my mouth drops and my tears roll up in my eyes and I go, oh my God, how could you even survive something that brutal? And look how strong you are. And look what you're doing and look at the pathway you're on. And and other people look at mine and do the same thing. Well, if we can be the people that gives somebody with a sad story the ability to go, oh, if they can get through a story like that, I can get through mine. Hey, I'll gladly be that person. I'll happily be that person. There's life is hard. It probably isn't supposed to be, but the way we have things now, it's hard. Yeah. But get up every day and get in there because it is a fucking adventure. And if you lay down and get shit kicked, man, it'll keep shit kicking you. So it'll and even if you do get shit kicked, I think we're both walking, talking proof that you can stand back up and heal. Yep.
Yeah. So don't think that just because you were shit kicked down that it's impossible to get there. Nah, dude, man. It's absolutely possible to stand back up and heal. And there's people that'll reach their hands out and help you.
You don't have to jump up ready to fight again.
No.
Just get up slowly, shake it off, breathe, go, wow, that was an experience. What do I need to learn from it?
Yep.
For years, I jump back up. All right. who's next? You know, no. Get up, dust it off, shake it, breathe. Breathing is key. Get the airflow going, get the brain together. Whew. Where are we going next? What's the next adventure?
Yeah. So what is the next adventure for Steve?
Well, I'm loving the podcast. We're doing that. I'm helping people with health and nutrition advice. We've got the products going. The At Ease company is working quite well to help we've got a lot of people that are happy and healing. It's a beautiful thing. I'm writing a couple of books. One of them is on microdosing. I'm going to try and have it out real soon, and let people learn all the stuff I wish I'd learned before I jumped into the world of microdosing. But we'll get that all together, get that book done, get it published, and then help people learn how to microdose properly.
That's wicked.
And then probably a couple more podcasts and stuff, eh? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I know of a couple that you're trying to get going and trying to get planned. I did just have, because you were talking about some of the products earlier, and then you were talking about the fact that you do have a company. This is the website for the products that Steve was explaining, www.at-ease.com. You can also find Steve via that. There is a way to email and find him. So you can find Steve with that if you have any questions. Steve's a pretty open guy, and he's pretty willing to share his story and his advice. So you can reach him there. Ask whatever. It's pretty easy to do. That's what I did. I just reached out and I went, hey.
And look where it's gotten us. One thing I do want to touch on is the nutrition aspect, because I go to the psychedelics a lot, but I have also been on a nutritional program. My buddy Cease, who is the nutritional guru, put together a lot of various products, and they're available at Ease, and I use them. I use the products. I use the gut healing protocol. The nutrition has done just as much for my healing as the psychedelics have. If you heal your gut, you heal your immune. If you heal your immune, you heal your body. If you heal your immune in your body, you're healing your mind. You're healing your brain. It all is cohesive. It's all synergistic. And I have to give kudos to Cease, because in the healing of this end and the healing of people that are fighting cancer and boosting their immune systems, some of the products that he's got are just kicking ass. Even with people that have found some vaccine injury stuff, it's kicking ass. There's hope in nutrition. That is where healing is. Whole plant medicine is a beautiful place. So I do want to give kudos to, and I know you've been on the nutrition program as well. What have you got to say on it? Oh gosh,
A lot. But I mean, we don't have a lot of time. I mean, like Steve he started me here probably about a year or so ago, a year-ish ago, with the mushrooms that you were talking about earlier that you've augmented with, adding this or adding cacao. I take that usually before you added the cacao. I took it in the capsule form because I didn't like the taste of it. But with the cacao and, in a cup of hot chocolate, it tastes great. I mean, it tastes like cacao, right? So I use that. I find that's made a huge difference, especially with the cacao. And then I take the whole, supplements. I do the gut health, and I do the nutrition.
I know we had you on the Super C Veg, which helps to regulate the thyroid and bring a lot of that into play.
Yeah.
And the greens and the berries, the gut health.
Yep,
there.
all the nutrition, and all, and then the gut health, and so it's been, and then the anti-inflammatory stuff, because I have fibromyalgia and I'm being tested for autoimmune diseases, which means lots and lots of swelling, and that or the Inflamaclear,
Inflamaclear, yeah,
that stuff. It's been a game changer.
Yeah.
Right. My joints feel like way, way better. So it is a huge part of the healing, because as you can make your body feel better, if you think about it, when you're in physical pain, you're in mental pain. You don't mean to be snappy, but you become snappy because you just want to get the words out and relax again.
Yep.
And it's not because you're in a bad mood. It's just because you're in pain and you don't want to concentrate on a conversation. So if you can get some of that swelling and pain down, that helps the mood, and then you're not beating yourself up because you just snapped at somebody you love. Right. And, you're not failing in that. And that's huge for the mental health, especially if you're in active healing. I mean, you don't want to pull yourself back. So the nutrition and the pain killing and everything it's a large part of it. I agree with you completely on that one.
Yeah, it's been life-changing. And for the longest time, I was just focused on the microdosing and some of that aspect. But it's like, no, the gut being, coming into play, and healing the gut biome is massive. All healing takes place in the gut. You take an aspirin, where does it go? It goes to your gut. You take an Advil, where does it go? It goes to your gut. Even the medicines end up in your gut. So your gut is where everything happens.
Yeah.
And our guts are based off of nutrition and plant medicine. And if we give it the right nutrients and keys, it'll unlock all the locks in the immune system to make the body heal.
Yeah. And something else that has come out of your healing that, it's been part of your healing and it's become stronger with your healing is you've been able to look at your girls and accept them for who they are, give them complete and unconditional love and support. You help them love themselves. You help them, help themselves. And that's something that's really beautiful. That's a lot of people that have ended up, have led the lives that your daughters have led, have lost family, have lost friends. And not because they've lost them, but because they've turned their backs and walked away because they can't watch them. And you've given your daughters such an amazing and beautiful gift that, and the medicines have helped you give that to them and helped you make that stronger. And I just think that that's really incredible.
Actually to myself, because for me to be able to do that for them, I have to be able to do it for myself. Again, I have to lead by example. Thank you for pointing that out, because in that I was able to see, I can't do that for them unless I've done it for myself. And
so you've done it for you too. And it's just incredible that you've been able to do that for yourself, but it's a gift to them as well, because you've given them strength that they probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And that's a pretty incredible thing to do. And it's very healing for them.
Yeah, it's healing for the whole family. It's a beautiful thing. Unconditional love is a beautiful thing. It is the ultimate goal. It's there I'm able to find it. There's a lot of places I'm still struggling. My patterns are conditional love. And if the conditions aren't met, then I should be mad. Bullshit. That's just a pattern too.
Yeah.
Break the patterns. Break the patterns of dysfunctionality, baby.
So if you want to reach out to Steve, like I said, atease.com is a great place to find him. You can find him through the podcast. You can find him through Pace. You can find him where else?
Facebook. I'm pretty much there. You can find me. I've got a thing called My Healing Journey. There's a page there called My Healing Journey. Microdosing, macrodosing, nootropics, and adaptogens, although I haven't been in there much except to get yelled at by people. But thank you, Helene and Jenny and Lisa and you for looking after bouncing people out of it. I promise I'll come back. I'm just spending every moment that I have free trying to get the book finished, actually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure. So if you want to reach out to Steve, any one of those work, that does bring us to the end of the show. And I know that we could probably fill another 2 hours easily with all of this chat. So thanks for joining us here at the Mushie Moment for today, September 5th. My birthday's tomorrow. We are coming to you live from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pace Radio.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Cindy. Happy birthday to you.
CBGTV.com. We're on Boxcast, Roku, and Fire Stick. So look us up. Thank you so much for joining us. thank you, Steve, for sharing your story.
My
I am
pleasure.
so honored that you have come along to do this. And we will be back next week. And I will have my co-host back by my side, co-hosting. Thanks.
Are we interviewing you?
Not next week. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Bye, folks.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop free.